Coming up next on Art Rocks, a Lake Charles artist who has garnered the attention of movie makers.
I've never gone more than a week without drawing something, like my entire life. I'm just compulsive about it.
An artist who shatters notions of what can be done with glass.
His work almost appears as if it could have come from nature. They're influenced by the sun, by the wind. That's something that is fascinating to him.
We'll spend some time with a living legend from Houston, Texas.
Painting is the most magnificent creative capability that I know of as a visual artist.
And get to watch as this photographer uses food to create kitchen art.
The artist makes their own rules. For me, I just kind of make my own rules.
It's all ahead on this edition of Art Rocks.
Art Rocks is made possible by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and by viewers like you.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for Art Rocks with me, James Fox Smith, publisher of Country Roads magazine. It's been an exciting year for Lake Charles artist John Martel. Much of his work came to life, literally, in the movie American Ultra. But John's biggest fans are those who get to enjoy his work on their own walls every day.
Mostly, it's other artists that have bought his work. It blows their mind to see the amount of skill involved in his work and the imagination and all, so they really relate to that.
I mean, as long as I can remember drawing. I drew something in kindergarten, and my teacher gave me a big check mark and an A on it, even though it wasn't a test, and I was like, man, this drawing stuff's all right, you know? I've never gone more than, like, a week without drawing something, like my entire life. I'm just compulsive about it.
The results are often creatures, monsters with multiple heads, or characters that resemble those in video games. Some look scary, while others are whimsical.
It's just the stuff that I'm a fan of. I mean, I guess I'm a big kid. I love science fiction, fantasy, horror movies. I mean, if I don't have anything in particular that I'm wanting to do, like if I just pick up a pencil and start drawing, a monster's probably going to pop out just because that's what I've always done. They're fun.
Many of Martel's creations are dark and dramatic. Others are lively and enchanting. They captured the attention of Richard Bridgewood, the production designer and art director for the movie American Ultra.
I didn't know who it was or what the movie was. I was like, sure, you know, because I'm drawing all the time anyway. If I can get a couple bucks out of it, sure. So I looked him up afterwards and realized that he'd worked on all kinds of movies. He did all the production design for, you know, Guy Ritchie's movies, the Sherlock Holmes movies, just tons of stuff. It's like big Hollywood stuff. The main character in the movie draws, and everything that he drew in the movie, I drew it. There were several key pieces of art that needed to, it's this, doing this, and he had a couple comic characters that he drew all the time, like a little brick guy and an ape called Apollo Ape in a spacesuit.
Martel is very adept in a variety of mediums.
I work a lot in pen and ink just because it's the most portable, easy to pick up and put down medium that I have at my disposal. I do a lot of watercolor. I do gouache, which is very similar to watercolor except it's opaque. It was used by a lot of designers and illustrators and stuff in the 20s and 30s, all the old posters, because it dries quicker than acrylic. Sometimes I work just in pencil. I've done oils, but I haven't done them probably in close to 10 years just because it's messy and I have kids. So.
The detail in Martel's work is precise, meticulous, and he admits it comes very easily to him.
Your hand learns a rhythm. I could lay down a bunch of lines and I go back to the same place, and if I start at the same mark, I can make the exact same lines again because your body just knows how to do what you're doing. There's a lot of muscle memory. I spent years freaking out about things, but you get to a point where I know just as many tricks of how to cover up a huge mistake as I do techniques on how to do something that looks nice, you know.
Martel looks to the past to find inspiration from other artists, masters of their genres.
I really enjoy the work of Mobius. He's a French comic artist. He's one of the greatest comic artists that's ever lived. Sergio Topi is an Italian comic artist. Huge fan of illustrators. J.C. Leyendecker from the 20s, and then he influenced Norman Rockwell. There's a lineage around, even though these things were created for commercial means, it's art. I would rather look at that than a Picasso all day long.
You can see more of John's work by visiting jonathanmartel.com. Now, no matter where you live in Louisiana, you can always find opportunities to enjoy great performances, the work of fine artists, and those who dabble in the arts just for fun. So here's some of what's going on in the arts across our state. For more information on these events, visit the website at lpb.org/artrocks. And to find more arts activities, check out countryroadsmag.com. Glass artist Dale Chihuly has been creating works for more than 45 years. His sculptures are displayed at nearly 200 museums worldwide, and his intricate and elaborate designs have been installed in a number of unconventional locations around the world. In his monumental installation, Garden Cycle, Chihuly weaves hand-blown glass into the 24 acres of the Denver Botanical Gardens. Let's take a look.
Dale Chihuly's work shattered ideas that fine art and glass were incongruous. His techniques, brazen use of color, bodacious shapes, and outlandish size, refined over his 40-year career, have elevated glass to fine art status. His work appears in more than 200 museum collections worldwide, and this installation at the Denver Botanical Gardens is part of his ongoing project, Garden Cycle.
The scale of it is pretty massive. We have 14 sites, and there are multiple pieces of glass for every single one of those sites.
We really wanted to take advantage of all 24 acres of the garden, and specifically the water features. Dale loves water. He's inspired by water. So that was one of the major focuses he had in putting this show together. Coming into the garden, we wanted to do something pretty monumental to great visitors, since I've introduced them to the work. So we've got a 30-foot neon tower that obviously looks very different in the nighttime hours.
We did a walk around starting about 8:30 and going until about 11:30 at night once all the sculptures were installed. And so I got to be the first one outside of the Chihuly studio to see all the sculptures at night. And it's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. There are places that feel like fire, and there are places that feel like the sunburst, and there are places that just feel like a really cozy and intimate, lovely, beautiful garden. It's a fantastic thing to see.
There are some challenges in working with gardens, but our team is very sensitive and respectful of the gardens, working with the horticulture team. In some cases, we're looking at several thousand pounds of armature and glass, so as you can imagine, there's some engineering that's involved in that. I would say it's a combination of magic and behind-the-scenes practicality.
We had a team that included staff members, hired art handlers, volunteers from the Botanic Garden side of things, and then 8 people from the Chihuly studio, usually at any one given time, that were working constantly.
A piece like the Summer Sun, as you come along the walkway coming into the garden, has over 1,900 individual elements that are fixed to a steel armature that's at the core of it. And then in the case of the perennial walkway, we have individual elements that are staked, taking advantage of those view pockets and the beautiful plantings. You are seeing a little bit of movement to keep that sort of organic flow. You have to keep the work stable, because with the weather, eventually they're going to clank into each other. It has hailed, it has rained sideways, it has blown very hard, and now it's 90 degrees and sunny. So I think we have certain expectations that we're going to be encountering some weather here in Denver. We did have some hail during the installation. That would probably be the one type of weather condition that we really hope doesn't occur. We've been through hurricanes in Florida. We've sustained high winds He has a chandelier that's embedded in a granite rock in the Cascades that's been there since 1998. They get 6 feet of snow a year. So the glass is surprisingly hardy, but it's glass, and some of the elements are a little more delicate, so they are a little more vulnerable.
It really has a wide range of forms and colors.
He likes the raw materials, raw elements. He likes that his work almost appears as if it could have come from nature. They're influenced by the sun, by the wind. That's something that is fascinating to him, and you can see that carried through his work.
There's some that are very spiky and slim. There's some that are very round and organic. There are some that look like snakes, and there are some that have very floral forms to them. So they really run the gamut. The impression for many, many people is that it completely fits here, that it's at home here. And I think Dale would concur with that in fact he likes the idea that you turn the corner and it looks like it's a natural thing that's in that setting.
He has revolutionized the boundaries of the media. Exploring glass as a material to work with. I think he's one of the first to really take glass off-center, to give it more of an organic form and feel.
Beautiful.
He's most well known as a glass artist. However, he has worked extensively in a material called polyvitro, which is a term that he's coined. It's a polyurethane material.
We have glass, we have neon, and we have the polyvitro pieces that are all part of the exhibition. But the thing they have in common is that sort of translucence quality and also that piercing piece that sun provides and the light provides for it. And so that actually has a completely different feel to it than anything that we've had in the gardens before. We've never had glass in the gardens before. And so you're going to have the light playing off of them in a particular way. And throughout the day, throughout the seasons, it's all going to be different. And they look completely different at night. They also look completely different at sunset and at sunrise. And so every moment is going to be a little bit different. It's pretty fantastic. It takes your breath away.
It's incredibly rewarding and a pleasure to work in these beautiful gardens. He's very curious and interested in trying new things. The team will be pushing the scale of the medium, the weight, the color, pretty much anything you can imagine. He's a genius at inspiring us all to try new things and push beyond boundaries.
Traveling now to our neighboring state of Texas to spend some time with Michael Roque Collins. Michael comes from a family that has been active in the Houston art scene since the early 1940s, but that hasn't stopped Michael from being heard in his own distinct voice. Let's take a listen.
For me, art is plumbing the soul. There is a need to express. And the question is how that expression becomes artful. Painting is the most magnificent creative capability that I know of as a visual artist. My name is Michael Roque Collins, and I'm an artist. When I was a young boy, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles were all artists. So that might doom me to servitude, stretching, sizing, and priming, and that was the case. But my early passion was in drawing. Eventually, dreams that I had from my childhood became the driving force in my art. My father, Lowell Collins, was a well-known artist in our region. He spent most of his life in Houston, but studied abroad, Art Students League in New York, Colorado School of Arts and Design. He came to Houston, had a variety of jobs teaching at Rice University and University of Houston. And he also ended his professional teaching career as Dean of the Museum School, now called Glassell. When I was growing up, to have two parents and aunts and uncles that were all artists, it was a blessing and somewhat of a curse. But that's part of the struggle. We each, as artists, find our own voice. I realized as a painter that we need to go deep into what we do and be singular with our experiences. We differed in the sense that I'm continuing focusing on painting, where his life was more of a Renaissance creation where many aspects professionally in art became a factor. I was classically trained, and when you look at the series of my work over time, I started off with a series that was representationally related to recording people, places, and things, the realistic years. Then my work started to take on the notion of dreamscapes, and then finally, after many years of narrative, that narrative started to ebb in the mid-2000s into work that dealt with post-symbolistic tendencies, where I'm wanting the viewer to have an experience, to encounter light, land, darkness, enlightenment, and have their own conclusion, their own narrative, their own story becomes told by their engagement with the composition. So I think art does reflect our life's journey. Our loves, our relationships, all those great things that make our culture exciting to live in. I think true success is the ability to find something in your life that provides joy. And if that joy can provide, that experience of painting can provide illumination, a certain enlightenment to others, even reflecting the tribulations in life. You do your job as an artist to communicate those tragic glories that are humankind. And I hope at the end of my life, I can say that my work has meant something, that it relates to fundamental issues about the human condition, the heart, the emotion, and that it has a connection, a deep connection to future generations that would look at it and experience and locate and find newness upon each glance.
You'll find more about Michael by visiting michaelroquecollins.net. When you see a beautiful plate of food in a magazine, it can really make you hungry. Milwaukee food photographer Natoli Sheldon has a passion for food photography that goes beyond making what we eat look great on the page. She makes kitchen art, and here's a look.
The textures and the smells and I mean the lighting, it just speaks to me. It makes me happy. It puts a smile on my face. My name is Natoli Sheldon. I am a food photographer and I live in Milwaukee. I'm a food photographer / prop stylist. A food stylist is more of the person that will cook the food for you, so I work with a lot of food stylists. I'm a prop stylist or a set stylist and a food photographer, kind of all mixed it into one. I actually went to photo school to MATC. The art class that I took happened to be photography. And I liked it and I continued on with that. But while I was shooting, for my classes, I was always shooting food. All the teachers would tease me because it was like, if we were shooting symmetry, I'd have apples lined up in a row, or if whatever we were shooting, it was food related. So I always knew that I would shoot food. Kitchen art is a thing I started years ago, probably 35 years ago. It's art for kitchens. It's still lifes of food. It can be anything. For me, it's usually fruits and vegetables, and like I love vintage silverware and vintage plates and lots of metal and cool, right now all that repurposed wood is so hot, so that speaks to me. So that's what kitchen art. It's just a pretty image of food or food-related items that you would hang in your kitchen. Normally, I like to bring it home and put it in my own setting, and have my cool surfaces and my cool silverware. I'm all about the props. I love cloth, I love linens, and actually a lot of the stuff is left over from my family members too. I use a lot of my mother's dishes, and my mother-in-law has great props. Like all the silverware is from my mother-in-law's house. A lot of my kitchen artwork is backlit. It's a lot of, bright colors and light and airy. I don't really have it figured out when I start, but as I'm going, then it kind of evolves. I've created a piece called Winter Harvest. For me, it's a more modern take on food photography. I started with the big things. I started with like a chunk of kale and some beets. It's sitting on a piece of slate. It's a beautiful surface and food looks awesome on it. What I do is I just start setting things down. And then I take a shot, see what I think, move it around, change the light. The light, it's all about the light to me. It's how the light hits the subject. I move the light around a lot. You have to be patient. You have to be to putz. You have to I move, a piece of garlic 1/4 of an inch and then I take a picture and then it's like, ugh, and then I put it back. And so it's all about the composition and it's all about the lighting and how it's falling. And then I go back and think, oh, that's too contrasty or that's too not contrasting enough. But then there's the digital darkroom, the Photoshop and all of that stuff. Time gets away from you. For me, I can spend a lot of time finessing the contrast and the saturation of the colors and just certain colors. And so there's a lot of editing that goes in. At least for me, I like to play with that, have my final result. It's always just a work in progress. So that's the challenge, is just being patient and just taking your time. And for me, it's fun, so it's not challenging. The kitchen art I do for myself. It's what speaks to me, what I love. I light it the way I want to light it, that sort of thing. The commercial work is I work for somebody. I work for a client that has a product. So the difference is I still, light it and I do everything and it's wonderful, but it's to their specifications. You have to be actually true to the product, but it still evokes the same feeling in me. It's still beautiful. I still enjoy it. It's great. The artist makes their own rules. For me, I just kind of make my own rules. As long as I am true to the product. It's kind of just in me, I just kind of do what comes to me naturally. People just say, oh, I could just eat that, or I just want to lift it off the page, and it's how I feel. So it's nice that I'm getting other people to feel exactly how I'm feeling with my art. Because really I'm doing it for me, and the fact that other people enjoy it too, that's like icing on the cake.
A slice of that cheese and a glass of wine would be nice right now, wouldn't it? Well, we can't leave you without giving you one more taste of our own state with our Louisiana Treasure segment. If you travel the River Road between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, you don't want to miss out on the splendor of Homer's house, tucked behind a grove of grand oak trees.
Those rows of trees are almost certain to capture your attention. And when you look more closely, you'll spot the magnificent house that dates back to the early 1800s. This house was named Homer's house because it's built on property once settled by the Homer Indians. A wealthy Virginia general, Wade Hampton, purchased the land and first built a fairly simple West Indies-style home around 1810. The house evolved into this impressive Greek Revival mansion. Wooden support beams were transformed into huge white columns. The little saplings planted to shade the home grew into grand oaks. This is one of the many magnificent homes built along the Mississippi River in Louisiana. The fertile silt from the river provided some of the finest soil for growing cotton and sugarcane. The demand for sugar provided the homeowners with enough money to not only build a treasured home, it also provided enough cash to acquire the finest furnishings and whatever else the homeowners wanted. Today, Homer's house is open to public tours and is a reminder of times gone by.
So that's going to do it for this edition of Art Rocks. But remember, you can always watch episodes of Art Rocks at lpb.org/artrocks, which is also a great place to find out more about what's going on in the arts across the state. Until next time, remember, there are few things more relaxing than enjoying great art, whether it's paintings, books, and the live performances that surround us. So until next time, I'm James Fox Smith, and thanks for watching.